Ladies and gentlemen, there's something I need you to hear in your bones today. You were never meant to stay locked in the box they put you in. You've been walking around with a key in your pocket while acting like the cage is sealed. But that limitation you're feeling, that wall you keep running into, it's not always real. It's often perceived. Self-doubt is the locksmith. Fear is the padlock. And excuses, they're the rusty chains keeping you bound. But here's the truth. Absolutely, here's an expanded 5-paragraph version of key point no one. Perceived limitations aren't permanent. In that same energetic, uplifting tone, too often we treat our limitations like they cemented in stone. Unchangeable, immovable, eternal. But the truth is, many of the things we call limitations are simply perceptions we picked up along the way. Somewhere along the road, somebody told you what you couldn't do, and instead of questioning their authority, you accepted their opinion as law. You built your life around a lie that said, this is as far as you'll go. But just because you've lived with it doesn't mean you have to die with it. What you perceive as a wall may only be a shadow, intimidating in shape, but powerless in substance. Perceptions are powerful. They shape your expectations, influence your confidence, and dictate how you approach the future. If you believe you're stuck, you'll stop looking for a way out. If you assume your potential has a ceiling, you'll never jump. But hear me when I say this. Your perception is not your prophecy. It may be how you see things right now, but it is not how they have to be. Just because you failed before doesn't mean you're destined to fail again. Just because you haven't seen anyone around you break through doesn't mean you weren't born to be the first. Some of the limitations you're carrying weren't even yours to begin with. They were inherited, passed down like family heirlooms. We don't do that. People like us don't make it there. This is just the way things are. You didn't choose those mindsets, but they took root in you anyway. And now they've dressed themselves up like reality. But it's time to uproot those false beliefs. It's time to stop letting someone else's fear speak louder than your own faith. You don't have to live according to the script someone else wrote for you. You can flip the narrative. The brain is a storyteller and it loves patterns. If you failed once, your mind tries to protect you by convincing you to stop trying. That sounds safe, but it's actually sabotage. The most dangerous limitation isn't the one in your body or your resources. It's the one in your mind. If your thinking is locked, your life will follow. If you believe you're stuck, you'll live stuck. But once you shift that thinking, once you dare to believe that your limitations are not the final say, everything begins to shift. You'll see doors where you used to see dead end. You'll see steps where you used to see cliffs. Perceived limitations feed off of time. The longer you live with them, the more real they start to feel, but longevity does not equal truth. A lie can live for decades and still be a lie. So just because something's been with you for a long time doesn't mean it deserves to go with you into the next chapter. You have to be willing to look at every boundary in your life and ask, who told me this was the limit? Because sometimes the only thing that makes a cage feel real is that you've never tried the door. Let me know if you'd like this continued or if you want it broken down into a short video script or slides. Absolutely. Here's a 5-paragraph expansion of key point no 2. You already have the key, keeping the same passionate, empowering rhythm and style. The most dangerous lie you can believe is that freedom is always somewhere outside of you, that the answer is in a relationship, a job, a city, or someone else's approval. But what if I told you that what you need to break free is already in your hands? You're not waiting for a key, you're holding it. It might be buried under fear, wrapped in insecurity, or hidden behind your past. but it's there. The ability to break out, break through, and break free is not about finding something new. It's about activating what's already inside you. The key is not coming. The key is already yours. You see, God doesn't place you in a position of purpose without giving you the tools to access it. But we often overlook the key because it doesn't come the way we expect it. We think it has to be shiny, obvious, loud. But sometimes the key looks like persistence. Sometimes it looks like prayer. Sometimes it looks like making the hard choice to show up again when everything in you says quit. The key doesn't always come with a spotlight. It often comes in silence, in stillness, in those moments when you choose courage over comfort. Don't underestimate your small acts of obedience. They may be unlocking something huge. You already have the key in your story. Everything you've been through, the pain, the process, the pressure, it wasn't wasted. That pain shaped you, that loss taught you, that trial equipped you. The key might be in your scars, in that quiet strength you developed while surviving what almost broke you. People look at you now and see a survivor, but what they don't see is that you came out of that fire holding something valuable. Wisdom, resilience, discernment. That's the key. Not a title, not applause, but the unshakable truth that you are still standing. What you survived gave you access. The problem is we keep comparing our key to someone else's. We think, well, I can't do what they do. I don't have what they have. But your key was custom made. It doesn't have to look like anyone else's to be powerful. Stop waiting for someone to hand you permission when God already gave you purpose. You don't need their validation to use your voice. You don't need their recognition to make a move. You don't need access when you are the access. Stop waiting to be let in when you were born to break out. And maybe, just maybe, the real key isn't something you do, but something you believe. Because you can't unlock what you don't think you deserve to open. You can't step into doors you've convinced yourself you're not worthy of walking through. Some of us have had the key in our hand, but didn't know we had the right to use it. So we've stood still, silent, stuck, waiting for permission that was never needed. But now it's time to pick up the key and turn it. Faith is the hand. Vision is the grip. Action is the turn. You're not locked out, you've just been afraid to move. Want to keep going with key point 3 next? Absolutely. Here's a 5-paragraph expansion of key point number 3. Fear and doubt are the real locks, written with that same passionate, truth-telling tone. The lock isn't always in your circumstances, it's in your mindset. You keep looking at your bank account, your background, your education, your age, and thinking that's what's holding you back. But can I tell you something real? Some of the most gifted, capable, anointed people are stuck, not because of what's missing on the outside, but because of what's been whispering on the inside. Fear doesn't need bars, it just needs belief. Doubt doesn't need chains. It just needs a place in your thoughts. And if it can convince you that your limits are facts, you'll never test the lock to find out it was never locked at all. Fear always shows up with a megaphone, talking loud when you're about to step into something new. It says you're not ready, you'll fail, what if you lose everything? But fear isn't telling you the truth, it's telling you a story. It's a narrator that spins worst-case scenarios like it's prophesying your downfall. And the more you listen, the more your hands shake, your feet freeze, and your dreams delay. Fear doesn't need to stop your life. It just needs to slow it down enough that your faith runs out of breath. And once it does, doubt will sneak in through the cracks and start reinforcing the lie. See, you were never built for this. But here's the thing, fear and doubt are both liars. They're persuasive, they're persistent, but they're not powerful unless you let them be. Think about it. How many times have you said no to something, not because you couldn't, but because you were afraid you'd fail or be judged or come up short? That's not limitation. That's hesitation disguised as logic. Some of us are calling it being wise when really it's just being scared. Some of us are calling it timing when really it's just doubt hiding behind a calendar. You're not waiting on God. God might be waiting on you to push past the fear and trust him anyway. Doubt likes to remind you of every reason you're disqualified, every mistake you made, every weakness you carry. It's a broken record of your failures on repeat. But let me ask you this. Why does doubt always speak the loudest when you're about to do something meaningful? Because it knows your movement is a threat. It knows your breakthrough is close. And if it can plant enough hesitation in your spirit, it can delay your destiny. But your calling is not dependent on your confidence, it's dependent on your obedience. You don't have to be fearless to move. You just have to stop letting fear be your compass. And here's what makes this lock so deceptive. It looks invisible. People around you won't see it. You can still smile with it. You can still post with it. You can still lead with it. And yet, on the inside, you're stuck. Because fear doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. Doubt doesn't always shout. Sometimes it lingers. But both of them work the same way. They keep you from even trying the door. They convince you that the dream is dangerous and the risk is irresponsible. But the truth is, staying locked in a life that's too small for you is far more dangerous than anything fear could ever threaten you with. Let me know when you're ready for key point 4.
Absolutely.
Or if you'd like these
Here's
points
a
turned into a full chapter of performance
key
piece.
Point no. 4. Smallness is comfortable to others, written with the same fire, rhythm, and depth. Some people don't fear your failure, they fear your fullness. They fear what happens when you stop playing small, when you stop apologizing for your gifts, when you finally realize who you are and walk like it. Because the moment you stop shrinking, it exposes what they've refused to grow. Not everybody wants to see you evolve. Some people fell in love with your insecurities because it made them feel taller. They were comfortable when you didn't know your worth, when you questioned your calling, when you settled for less. Your smallness wasn't threatening, it was familiar. But now that you're talking about expansion, now that you're dreaming louder, now they feel the pressure to confront what they haven't done. But oh, let their comfort zones become your cage. It's tempting to stay small just to keep the peace, to avoid the looks, the distance, the weird energy that shows up when you start to grow. But peace that costs you your purpose isn't peace, it's prison. Some of us are walking around with spiritual claustrophobia. You feel the squeeze in your soul every time you try to compress or come pressing you. Someone else's expectations. You're suffocating under the weight of being nice, staying humble, and not outshining. But true humility isn't shrinking for others' approval, it's honoring what God placed in you, even if it makes others uncomfortable. It's not arrogance to stand tall in your gift, it's not pride to walk confidently in your purpose. You can be bold and still be kind, you can be strong and still be gentle, but let's be clear, you don't owe anyone your smallness. If your growth costs you relationships that were rooted in your brokenness, then maybe those connections were never meant to go with you. You weren't created to shrink for anyone's comfort. Your light isn't too much, they've just been living in the dark too long. And when light shows up, it exposes shadows. Don't dim just because they flinch. Shine anyway. Sometimes it's not even malicious, it's just that people only know the version of you that made them feel safe. They knew the struggling you, the timid you, the trying to figure it out you. So when you start stepping into clarity and confidence, it challenges their memory of you. And that can feel like a betrayal to them. But you are not responsible for staying stuck in who you used to be just to keep other people comfortable. Growth is not betrayal, it's obedience. And sometimes obedience to your purpose means disruption to someone else's illusion. The truth is, not everyone is meant to understand your calling. Some people only see your past and can't handle your potential. They remember your failures and ignore your future. But you cannot let their limited view become your limitation. They may have helped you survive, but that doesn't mean they're qualified to walk with you until you're thriving. Don't confuse loyalty with lifelong access. Some people were seasonal scaffolding meant to support the structure for a time, but not to stay once the building begins to rise. And rise you must, even if it means rising alone. Ready for key point 5, or want these expanded points turned into a chapter or spoken word script? Absolutely. Here's a 5-paragraph expansion of key point no. 5. Faith is a master key, written in the same powerful, layered, and spiritually charged tone. Faith doesn't knock, it unlocks. It doesn't wait for permission, it doesn't ask for confirmation, it doesn't need a full explanation. Faith is the master key because it gives you access before the facts make sense. It's what allows you to move while others are still measuring. It's the audacity to build without a blueprint, to speak life in the middle of silence, to trust God when the path ahead is still covered in fog. You don't need all the pieces when you've got faith, because faith is the piece that holds it all together. And sometimes the reason the door hasn't opened yet is because you're trying to pick a spiritual lock with a logical key. See, logic will tell you wait until you can see it there. But faith will whisper, move anyway. Logic waits for evidence, faith walks on a word. Logic needs numbers, faith needs nudges. And too often we abort the mission because we're looking for guarantees before we take a single step. But faith doesn't deal in guarantees, it deals in obedience. And that's what unlocks the impossible. That's what makes the walls fall. That's what turns water into highways and deserts into gardens. Not comfort, not calculation. Faith doesn't mean you never doubt, it means you move in spite of means. You don't wait for fear to disappear, you walk with it, but you don't let it lead. Faith grabs fear by the collar and says you can come, but you're sitting in the back seat. It's not about pretending everything's perfect, it's about knowing that even when things are messy, God is still moving. And when you truly walk by faith, you begin to see that every locked door isn't there to block you, it's there to reveal the power that was in your key all along. But here's where most people miss it. They think faith is a feeling. They think it has to feel good, feel right, feel peaceful. But real faith is not always comfortable. Sometimes it feels like stretching. Sometimes it feels like risk. Sometimes it feels like loneliness. But even when it's uncomfortable, faith works. Even when your knees are shaking, your voice is cracking, and your heart is racing, if you're walking in faith, with walking in power. Because faith doesn't require comfort, it requires commitment. And when you understand faith as the master key, you stop trying to unlock divine doors with man-made methods. You stop begging for validation and start walking in revelation. You stop asking, can I do this? And start declaring, if he called me, he'll keep me. You stop knocking on doors that were never meant for you and start building the ones that are. Faith gives you access that hustle can't. It opens what talent won't. It shatters ceilings that connections couldn't. Because the doors God assigns to your name don't respond to credentials, they respond to belief. Let me know when you're ready to roll into key point 6, or if you want to rework these into a sermon, a book chapter, or spoken word performance. Absolutely. Here's a 5-paragraph expansion of key point no. 6, movement precedes clarity, delivered in that same bold, faith-filled, momentum-shifting tone. Too many people are standing still, waiting for the whole picture before they take the first step. They want all the details, all the answers, all the certainty, and then they'll move. But destiny doesn't work like that. Vision doesn't come with a map, it comes with a call. And often clarity is hidden in the next step, not the current one. You won't see the whole staircase from where you're standing, but you'll never see anything if you refuse to lift your foot. God doesn't give instructions for monuments, he gives revelation to movers. Movement invites clarity, not the other way around. Let's be honest, some of us are addicted to preparation. We plan and pray and strategize and study until we convince ourselves we're being wise, but what we're really doing is stalling. We want to be so sure we don't fail that we end up failing to move. But obedience doesn't require full visibility, it just requires a yes. You don't have to see the finish line to start running. You don't need a spotlight to step out of the shadows. You just need enough faith to say, I don't know how this ends, but I know who's leading me. And when you move in that kind of trust, direction starts unfolding beneath your feet. Movement is a language of trust. It tells God, I don't see it all, but I believe you're in it. And when you begin to move, things that were blurry start coming into focus. Suddenly, what didn't make sense becomes confirmation. Suddenly, people you never imagined start showing up. Suddenly, provision meets your pace, not your plan. You've been waiting for the road to clear, but maybe the road is waiting on you to start walking. Breakthrough is often on the other side of movement, not meditation. Faith is not still, it's active. It's kinetic. It shows up in motion. And let's be real, fear loves stillness. Fear thrives in delay. The longer you wait, the louder your inner critic becomes. The more you hesitate, the heavier your doubts grow. That's why movement is not just about achievement, it's about warfare. Every step you take forward, silence is a lie. Every move you make in obedience weakens the grip of fear. You don't have to sprint. You don't have to leap. You do have to move. Because the longer you sit in indecision, the more you normalize limitation. And eventually, stillness becomes your identity instead of your strategy. You're not stuck because you don't know. Sometimes you're stuck because you refuse to go. You want divine clarity, but you're rejecting divine instruction. You want the next chapter, but you won't turn the page. But here's the truth, movement is often the miracle you're waiting for. You don't need all the answers to get started. You just need enough courage to take one step. And if you'll move with what you do know, God will begin revealing what you don't, step by step, layer by layer, door by door. The promise is in motion. Let me know if you're ready for key point 7, or what all these expanded points compiled into one flowing piece. Of course, here's a 5-paragraph expansion of key point no. 7 you were meant to fit in, written in the same bold, conviction-driven, soul-stirring tone. You've been trying to fit into spaces you were called to transform. You've been trying to blend in with people you were called to lead. You've been silencing your voice in rooms you were meant to disrupt. And let me tell you something, you were never meant to fit in. You were set apart, marked, different. And every time you try to shrink yourself to match the mold, you're denying the very power that makes you effective. It's your difference that holds your destiny. It's your uniqueness that carries your anointing. Fitting in may feel safer, but it will never fulfill you. It might protect your image, but it will rob your identity. You keep asking, why don't they get me? Why don't they see me? Why do I feel out of place? But being out of place in the world often means you're in position for purpose. You weren't built to echo, you were designed to resound. And when your voice carries weight, not everyone will clap. When your presence carries purpose, not everyone will stay. And that's okay. Because approval is not your assignment. Belonging is not the same as alignment. You don't need a seat at their table when God already built one for you, custom-made, handcrafted, and reserved with your name on it. The reason some of your relationships feel strained, the reason certain rooms no longer satisfy, the reason old circles feel tight is not rejection, it's redirection. It's not because you failed, it's because you grew. And now your spirit can't settle where it used to. What once fed you now frustrates you. That's the stretching. That's the evidence of elevation. So don't force yourself back into spaces that can't hold the weight of who you're becoming. You won't apologize for outgrowing what was only meant to carry you part way. Not everything that was with you can walk with you. When you stop trying to fit in, you start standing out. And when you stand out, you stand visible to the right ones, those who recognize what's in you, not just what's around you. Those who celebrate your calling instead of tolerating your growth, those who don't need you to dim your light to make them comfortable. Let them misunderstand you, let them label you, let them walk away. You were never created to be average, normal, or safe. You were created to shift atmospheres. You were created to interrupt patterns. You were created to carry glory in a world that prefers conformity. You're not too much. You're just not made for small spaces. You're not too different. You're just not called to fit into a copy-paste culture. What makes you stick out is what makes you effective. What makes you misunderstood is what makes you necessary. Heaven didn't craft you to blend. Heaven crafted you to build, to stand out. So stop editing yourself. Stop performing for rooms that don't carry your future. If they can't handle the real you, they were never meant to hold your next. Let me know if you're ready for key point 8 or 1. Help compiling this whole series into one seamless message, sermon or chapter format. Absolutely. Here's a 5-paragraph expansion of key point no. 8, there's more in you than you've seen, written with that same deep, passionate, soul-awakening intensity. There's more in you than what you've been living. More than what you've been showing. More than what they've seen. You've been walking in survival mode so long you forgot you were born for dominion. You've adjusted to functioning in fragments when God designed you to operate in fullness. There's treasure in you that hasn't been tapped. There are ideas, visions, levels, dimensions of you that haven't even breathed in yet. You are not a summary of your struggle. You are not the total of your trauma. You are an undiscovered reservoir of brilliance, power, purpose, ability. You've only scratched the surface of who you are. The problem is you've been living according to what life handed you, instead of what God put in you. Circumstances tried to label you. People tried to box you in. Experiences tried to scar your identity. And slowly, without realizing it, you adjusted your expectation downward. You lowered the ceiling to match what others said you could be. But deep down, there's still a fire, a pull, a divine dissatisfaction that says, there's more. I feel it, I know it. I just don't see it yet. That's not your ego talking, that's eternity echoing. That's destiny trying to wake you up. What if the version of you that's living right now is the smallest expression of your potential? What if the miracles you've seen are just the previews, not the feature presentation? The enemy would love for you to believe that this is it, this is as far as you go, as good as gets. But he's only attacking you so hard because he sees what you haven't stepped into yet. The enemy doesn't waste energy on empty threats. If he's been trying to wear you out, it's because you're carrying something heavy, something holy, something history-making, something heaven-sent. The truth is, greatness rarely announces itself in the mirror. You don't always feel powerful while you're becoming it. You won't always see fruit while you're planting the seed. But that doesn't mean it's not working. That doesn't mean it's not in you. Stop waiting to feel worthy to walk in what you want. Start acting like the version of you that heaven already knows. Start thinking, moving, building, praying, living like you believe your potential hasn't expired. Because it hasn't. You're not late. You're just early to the next version of you. And let me tell you, when you finally unlock what's in you, everything around you will shift. Because the real you is a force, the real you is a storm breaker, the real you is a change shatterer. But the world won't get to meet that you until you give that version permission to rise. You've got more creativity than you've tapped into, more faith than you've used, more wisdom than you've walked in. Don't settle for the surface. Dig deeper. Press harder. Speak louder. There's a well in you and it hasn't run dry. It's just waiting for you to draw. Let me know if you'd like the full speech or message tied together from all 8 points, or if you'd like this shaped into a sermon, keynote, or a manuscript-style delivery. Absolutely. Here's a powerful TD. JAKES-style ending that brings all 8 points together with fire, hope, and a prophetic charge crafted to leave the room shaking and heart stirred. So I came to tell somebody you are not stuck. You are not finished, and you are not none. There is more in you than you've dared to believe. There is a depth in you that your past can't touch and your critics can't measure. You were never designed to live life beneath your calling. You were never meant to die in the cocoon. You were made to emerge. You were made to soar. You were made to unlock every limitation that ever tried to bind you in. The chains are not stronger than your calling. The fear is not louder than your faith. The delay is not the denial, it's the development. And when you decide to stop fitting in, when you start moving even when it doesn't make sense, when you walk by faith and not by sight, things break open. Doors swing wide, territories shift. Heaven backs you up. Because God never called you to survive inside the lines. He called you to break them. You've been playing small long enough. You've been hiding behind excuses long enough. This is your moment to stretch, to rise, to run. Don't wait until you feel ready. Move because you were born ready. Move because you've been anointed for this. Move because the earth is groaning for the sons and daughters of God to show up. Not timid, not half-hearted, not apologetic, but full, bold, free. So don't just leave here inspired, leave here activated. Leave here unlocked. The world is not waiting on another version of who you used to be. The world is waiting on the real you, the healed you, the unbent, unapologetic, unleashed you. And once you unlock what's inside of you, nothing outside of you can stop you. Not fear, not failure, not history, not opinions, because when God breathes on you, no chain can hold you. Go walk in it, go speak like it, go build like it. You don't need another sign, this is it. Unlock your limitations and don't ever look back.